D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 1025. The Game. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingen, and Connor Nute here with you. We hope you are having a wonderful Wednesday, a humid day in our fair city. That's right. I said humid, not humid. Sorry, everybody.
But see, you're showing that you're capable of saying it correctly.
You just got to slow yourself down. That's all.
But it feels weird in my mouth. Don't clip that.
It's clipped.
Thank you. Clip it, please.
The word humid, it feels weird to say. Humid. Like the way it makes my mouth feel. I don't care for it.
But doesn't it feel good to say it correctly?
Exactly. Every once in a while. Slow
Is
it
it
down.
soda or pop?
Would your family be in shock? Like, I'm talking about your mom and dad. If you came home and said humid, just said it.
I don't
Every
know.
time it came up,
I don't know
pronounce the H's.
if they would be in shock, but they also swallow their H's.
And that's what I'm saying.
As they are native New
Sure,
Yorkers.
that's how you learn.
Exactly.
Yes.
But if you go in the house and start not swallowing your H's, they would think something was wrong with you.
There are other reasons my parents think there are things wrong with me other than the way I talk. So they've got plenty of material as far as I'm concerned. I got to visit them last weekend. It was wonderful.
It's great.
Yes, we've got a full show planned for you today. In roughly 20 minutes, Shayna Goldman, NHL analyst for The Athletic, will join us. She wrote a story about the Predators and how the Predators can get back to contender status. So we'll break down all of that with Shayna Goldman in roughly 20 minutes. But let's start the show by sticking with the NHL. Speaking of places that are humid, Las Vegas, Nevada, where the Vegas Golden Knights completed their sweep of the Colorado Avalanche, a 2-1 win last night. Game-winning goal scored by Cole Smith, former Predators forward. But the Golden Knights sweep the Avalanche. You could argue would you call it one of the biggest upsets in Stanley Cup playoff history?
No.
Would you put it up there?
No, I don't think so. I think Vegas has won too many games over the last several years to ever put them that big of an underdog. Do you disagree?
Well, here are some stats that you shared with me.
So I know the stats, but
yes,
this is a good debate, I think.
Here are some stats that you shared with me, courtesy of ESPN Insights. The Golden Knights are the first Stanley Cup final team with under 40 wins in an 80-plus game season since the 2002 Hurricanes. Their 95 points in the regular season would not have been enough to make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, and they were plus 2,500 to sweep the Avalanche. And the Golden Knights are a fabulous team. Again, they have made the playoffs, they've made the Stanley Cup final 3 times now in 9 NHL seasons. They've made the playoffs 8 times in 9 NHL seasons. I believe they've made the conference final 5 times.
Yes.
In 9 seasons. So the Golden Knights they're a great team. But considering where the Golden Knights were near the end of the regular season, we were wondering if they would even make the playoffs. I remember when the Golden Knights came here to Nashville, I believe it was a Saturday afternoon, and they were in the midst of a terrible slump. They could not score. They could not get saves. And you wondered if the Golden Knights would fall out of the race. And ultimately, they made a decision to fire Bruce Cassidy with like a week left in the season. John Tortorella has taken them to the Stanley Cup final after being the coach for 8 regular season games, I believe. But as I'm watching the game last night, it is hard not to be envious of what Vegas has built in such a short amount of time. The number of playoff games they've won, I believe they've won more playoff games in 9 seasons than the Predators have won in their existence. Again, different rules in the expansion draft. That plays a part in it. But again, really impressive stuff from the Golden Knights. Completely shut down the Colorado Avalanche defensively. The Avalanche were hampered by injury, notably to Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon. We wonder what happens to the Avalanche now. Perhaps their GM could be on his way here. Chris McFarland. We'll find out.
Pretty quiet right now. I am curious what wheels might be turning behind the scenes based on all the reporting. And Elliotte Friedman had his latest podcast this morning that I'm sure we'll get to. But yeah, I spent a lot of time last night thinking about Vegas, and the conclusion I have is they have been rewarded for being daring, but I don't know that anybody could do it like they've done it. The uniqueness of the environment when they had the expansion advantages, and this is all to give them full marks for how they've done it. But I just don't think it's something that you can emulate in a lot of ways. I do think the mantra of fortune favors the bold can be emulated for sure, but the way they've done it is pretty unique. I give them a lot of credit. Um, and when they came into Nashville, the game you're recognizing, Adam, that the Predators won, I think everybody who watched that game walked away thinking it's just a matter of time. I never thought they weren't going to make the playoffs. It was all year long, and you know this. Their analytics were way, way better than their record. They didn't win the overtimes, which that's the only reason they didn't win 40 games. They had a bunch of games in overtime that they didn't win for one reason or another. I'm not really sure why, but I always thought they were a playoff team. It was very simply that the shots weren't going in based on the quality they were getting, and they had very poor goaltending for most of the year. And they have solved both of those things. And so it didn't surprise me. It was a shock to see them sweep the Avalanche, no question about it. It wasn't a huge shock that they won the series, especially when you consider the Avalanche and their health.
The one thing, Derrick, about the
Mhm.
Vegas Golden Knights that a lot of people point out, other than the fact that they are incredibly cutthroat, ruthless, whatever adjective you
Daring,
want to use,
yeah,
daring,
all of that.
bold, all of those things, is they have a knack for finding top players frustrated in their situations, bringing them to the desert, and that replenishing them. Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, and now Mitch Marner. And the hockey gods have a twisted sense of humor because Mitch Marner, his first season out of Toronto, is going to the Stanley Cup final.
Mhm.
He's the leading scorer in the NHL in the postseason. I believe he has 21 points in 16 games. He's the current front runner for the Conn Smythe Trophy, the playoff MVP award. And we see this across all sports.
Mhm.
Sometimes those superstars need that change of scenery to truly find their role, their happy place, whatever you want to call it. But Vegas, this is part of their history, their brief history. They target these players, these superstar players, on languishing teams and bring them to Vegas, and they become fabulous. So I would love to know. I would love to know from an athlete standpoint what that's like. I mean, perhaps you experienced this when you made the switch from Tennessee to Baltimore. Sometimes just that change of scenery can do a professional athlete so much good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Golden Knights have been risk adverse. They've, taken situations that were, uncertain and took them on, and they benefited from them. Um, it happens in every sport. You go to New England. New England was risk adverse. They would bring in guys that kind of sort of were labeled as locker room guys, guys that didn't sort of get along with everybody or made like a ruffle in the locker room. They took those guys on, and because they got a structure, those guys fall in line no matter what. As long as you got good leadership within the building, more importantly within that locker room, no matter who they bring in, they are going to adapt to the system that's already there. So you can take these different guys that may have been disgruntled and wanted to get out of deals, and Vegas looked at it as if we got a strong enough locker room, strong enough management that we can bring them here and they will fall in line, so to speak. And it's reigned true. It's been proven. So it's not necessarily guys, whether people believe it or not, guys in professional sports want structure. They want it. They're like kids. You want, it's just, I'm honestly speaking, you want structure. Why? Because you thrive in structure. And maybe because of them being disgruntled in one place, it messed up the structure. You come to another place that has a strong locker room, you can't disrupt that structure. If you do, then you're gone.
I think there's a lot to that for sure. I think there are a lot of organizations too that would have probably been just as daring and just as bold, and it's gone completely the other way.
Yeah.
So I think it doesn't mean that this is the only way to do things. I think there's a lot of different ways to have success, and specifically on Marner and changing addresses. I think one thing about Marner that I think about is the fact that he was in his hometown playing for the hometown team that happens to be the most I don't know what kind of microscope
of the hockey universe.
What kind of microscope would be the most extreme microscope? I don't know. I don't know enough about the different kinds of microscopes.
Googling most extreme microscope.
But whatever is like the most fine-tuned microscope. You are under the microscope in your hometown as a star player making a lot of money. And he was just not comfortable there. And in Vegas, it's the opposite. You get lost in the shuffle. It's a sea of people from literally all over the world when you're walking through Las Vegas. And then you get off into where people live and you're isolated. You're not surrounded by hockey fans wondering why you didn't do this or that last night. And I think he has thrived in that environment. And man, is that ever getting talked about in Toronto right now?
I'm sure.
So Bruce Arthur of the Toronto Star wrote a column about Marner making the Stanley Cup final. And Arthur had a quote from Ray Ferraro, ESPN NHL analyst, former NHL player. And Ferraro said to Arthur, I asked him, meaning Marner, I asked him once, how do you like it out there? Says Ferraro. He goes, at night, I walk my dog out in the street. It's awesome. That's the thing he mentioned, and it stuck with me. I walked my dog in my neighborhood.
There you go.
Something as simple as being able to walk your dog at night. That changes a lot.
Oh,
Chuck says, will this be the first time former Predators have faced off in the Stanley Cup final? I don't know the answer to that, but on the Vegas Golden Knights side, you've got Cole Smith, game-winning goal last night, Colton Sissons, Jeremy Lauzon. I am especially happy for Colton Sissons to have the opportunity to go back to the Stanley Cup final. A much different experience for him this time than when he went to the Stanley Cup final in 2017, when he was thrust into number one center duty against the Pittsburgh Penguins with Ryan Johansson out of the lineup because of injury. A much different role for Colton Sissons this time, but very happy for him personally. On the other side, Carolina's up 2-1 on Montreal. Game 4 is tonight. If Carolina advances, Mark Jankowski, a member of the Carolina Hurricanes, Alexander Carrier, a member of the Montreal Canadiens. So
both have played very good roles for those.
Jankowski is part of a very productive fourth line for the Carolina Hurricanes.
Sneaky good.
So a former member of the Predators is guaranteed to lift the Stanley Cup in a couple of weeks. I don't know the answer to your question, Chuck. Is this the first time former Predators have faced off in the Stanley Cup final? I have to imagine.
So. I would have to imagine it's happened before.
By the way, the Golden Knights have 74 playoff wins since 2018. The Predators have 56 playoff wins in franchise history. Andrew says the Golden Knights now have more Stanley Cup appearances with different coaches than the Preds have total coaches. Zero playoff series wins combined. Let that sink in for me and all Preds fans. If Trotz's successor isn't more aggressive and innovative, this franchise is doomed, not being hyperbolic. Well, we'll find out who that new GM is. Maybe it's Chris McFarland, or he's vice president or president of hockey operations. That was the rumor out there. Now the Colorado Avalanche have been eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's going to be an interesting summer, I think, in Denver. But we'll see if the Avalanche's elimination leads to any progress on the Predators GM search.
That's what to look for, no doubt about it. One more point on the philosophical ways of Vegas. I just think it's very easy in an environment like this to say, see, do it like they do it. Remember, I'm a Mets fan. Let's just give you, I could go back through the history of the Mets, which nobody wants to hear, but let me just keep it quick. The Mets blew a big lead last year in the standings, a big lead, choked on the last weekend of the season and missed the playoffs. What did they do? they turned over about half the roster. They didn't fire the manager, but they overhauled the clubhouse. They have a completely new set of players. And you know what happened? They got worse. They're awful right now. There's circumstances. So I'm just saying that if you're sitting there going, yep, Vegas has got it all figured out, let's do what Vegas does, that's not the only way to do it, and it doesn't always work. I promise you. The Mets have done it many times in their history. Most of the time, it hasn't worked.
615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on the Vegas Golden Knights advancing to the Stanley Cup Final for the third time in 9 seasons, sweeping the number 1 seeded Colorado Avalanche in the Western Conference Final. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we'll keep it on the NHL and the Predators. Shayna Goldman of The Athletic wrote a story earlier this week, Predators Stanley Cup contender checklist. How can Nashville escape the mushy middle? We'll discuss that with Shayna coming up next. 615-737-1025 today. The Nashville Sounds take on the Gwinnett Stripers at First Horizon Park. First pitch today is at 6:35 p.m. Catch all of the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure, Maple Street Biscuit Company, and Social Cantina. D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Connor Nute tells me the theme of today's show is colors. So red wine.
Okay. This is one of my faves right here.
It's a good one.
This is a good one. UB40.
Jinx.
Staple.
This is a relaxing song. Man.
You know who wrote this song? Anyone?
Bob Marley.
Nope. Sounds like it. You'll be surprised when I tell you.
Who is it?
Neil Diamond.
Oh.
It was a Neil Diamond song.
But he
remade into the
wasn't-
reggae feel from UB40.
Was that him singing it?
Oh, no, that's UB40.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a
Okay,
remake.
yeah.
But the writer of the song.
Oh.
Neil Diamond does do a version. It's a little different.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't have the reggae vibe like UB40.
Like,
We will be joined momentarily by Shayna Goldman of The Athletic as we await Shayna. Steven from Hendersonville on our text line says, the Vegas way is a hell of a lot better than the Predators way.
It's easy to say that after the fact. And you know what? The Predators didn't get the benefits that Vegas got in the expansion draft. So it's hard to compare the two. But look, if you're sitting, I'm taking a tough position saying don't do it like Vegas is doing because they're everything they do works. I don't know how. Everything they do has turned up properly for them. I almost said golden, but that'd be too corny.
well, you could have used it.
okay.
Because they're the Golden Knights.
You
but,
could be
It
corny.
would have been,
Let's go to our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com and welcome in Shayna Goldman, NHL analyst from The Athletic. Hi, Shayna. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for joining us. So earlier this week, you published a story with the headline Predator Stanley Cup Contender Checklist. How can Nashville escape the mushy middle? And this is a part of a project you are doing at The Athletic, looking at all of the non-playoff teams in the NHL and determining how far or close those teams are to contending for a championship. And in doing this analysis, you're relying on what's called the Stanley Cup checklist. So for those who are unfamiliar, explain the methodology behind the Stanley Cup checklist. What are you looking for as you evaluate all these teams?
So the checklist has evolved over the years. It used to be just, base values for players, that all encompassing. It was game score value added, which Dom Lucian came up with, but he tweaked the model to have offensive and defensive ratings and have more usage adjustments. So now with this update, it's a way to show not just what you need value-wise, but what roles you need and what the ideal values are for that role, right? So if you have a franchise or a star forward, what does that look like as an elite core player? What does a defensive or shutdown threat look like in different capacities throughout the elite supporting and depth cores? So it's based on, past Stanley Cup winners, and it has 13 roles, which not every team, not every winner is going to fit perfectly, but there's a threshold. So, there's luxury players, there's ideal players, but you also have some that are just passable that sometimes you can make up for if you have strengths elsewhere. We like the roster, it's built on paper is one thing, but obviously playing the game is totally different, but it helps to check as many boxes as possible.
So when you applied the Stanley Cup checklist, Shayna, to the Nashville Predators, what did you find?
It's, it could be better. The problem is this is a team that has a reputation for landing in the middle, right? It's the mushy middle, the dreaded middle, whatever, you call it. And that can be a team that just makes the playoffs, but is bound for round one exits. That's a team that could finish just outside the postseason and is in poor draft pick positioning. And it feels like that's where they're headed again this year. So every player that's on this list, we use their projected net ratings and offensive and defensive ratings. So it's based on 3 years worth of data. So it's not just based on last year alone. It's weighed for recency and, adjusted for aging. And those age adjustments are what really hurt the Predators here. Because at the end of the day, as good as Ryan O'Reilly was this year and as good as Roman Josi is, those players are going to be older. They're in their mid-30s. So we try to account for that as much as possible, because while someone like Josi is going to age more gracefully than the average defenseman, like we all know what shortcomings could be ahead for him and what areas of his game could take a step back. And I think the big issue is you don't see that second wave there enough behind him, behind Saros, to have those answers of what this team's going to look like down the line or even next season, because it feels like there's just so many directions this team could go and none of us know what that is yet.
So, Shayna, for the optimistic Predators fan out there listening, is there anything you found in this study that was encouraging for the Predators?
The core, they still have core players at each position, and that's always a good starting point to have. Like, you have Yossi, you have Saros, you have Forsberg. It's just figuring out which way to go from here. And I think that there's two ways to think about it. There is a path where the Predators could just build a team around those players and compete for the next couple of years and worry about the future later. And while it's, a short-term thing, they don't ask how, they ask how many. And if you can get one championship with this core, that's a win. The other way to look at it too is that this team could push this new look management group to change directions and stick to that direction and build a brighter future than they have right now. And there are players that could be valuable via trade. There are some players coming up the ranks that have some value. Luke Evangelista is probably the brightest spot so far if you look at the NHL level players that they have. And that could be a really promising path as well. We're seeing teams around the league. The Canadians are the prime example of it, of how quickly and efficiently you can pull off a rebuild and get right back into the playoff picture.
As you mentioned, Shayna Goldman of The Athletic with us. You mentioned the Predators. They're still searching for a GM. At least they haven't announced it yet. There are rumors out there that Chris McFarland could be leaving Denver for Nashville in some capacity. Whoever that new GM is, Shayna, if you were advising that person on how the Predators should proceed in the near future, what would you say?
I think it comes down to some of the players with no movement clauses. You have to figure out if any of them are movable at all, because O'Reilly doesn't have a no movement clause, but the Predators have treated him as such. And that's a player that should have trade value out there if, the Predators take that path of tearing it down. And someone like Stamkos, yes, the contract could be a wait, but this is still an elite goal scorer. And, those don't grow on trees. And it's an interesting offseason because there's not many free agents available. So if the Predators want to take that route, you have to convince everyone to waive their no movement clauses and just go off, tear it down. But I'm not sure that is the path. Like, I would be curious how creative and how out of the box this team could be to go for one more push with Yossi, Saros, and Forsberg. And I think it's good it's a new person coming into this organization to decide that, because it's always tough to make those decisions when you have history with those players and with that team and everyone knows what they mean to the franchise. But there is a path to doing that too. It's just going to take being creative. You look at what the Penguins did in the last year and how they got younger without mortgaging their future. And that's the key here. I think everything the Predators do, you have to keep the future in mind. So it's finding those reclamation projects and the Chinnikovs of the world and trying to, leverage as much cap space as possible to build something, even if it's something that's just for one or two more runs.
Shayna Goldman is with us from The Athletic, a great assessment of the Predators in the offseason. You can go to theathletic.com and check it out. Shayna, you touched on it in the article. I'm really curious how you tried to evaluate some of the younger players, even a notch below the likes of Evangelista and Zach LaRue, because they've been building this group of prospects, a deep pool, for the last 4 years or so. They've been adding assets quietly while they've stayed somewhat competitive. Of course, the wheels fell off last season. But how did you try to work in some guys? Because you mentioned a lot of them by name, some of the top prospects that we really don't know how they're going to look the next year or two.
Yeah, so I lean heavily on some of the amazing prospect writers we have. Like, I will be completely and totally honest here. Like, prospects are not my forte. Like, if I wanted to pretend to do that, I truly would be a jack of all trades and a master of literally none. But I lean heavily on, Scott Wheeler's prospect pool rankings came out this spring, and they're a great springboard because he tiers them and you can kind of see what he projects those players' ceilings to be. But I think it's important to include that because when Barry Trotz first took over, it did seem like the direction was to get younger and focus on the future. So they've gained a ton of draft picks over the years. So they technically have, trade capital if they want it, but they can also use that for themselves. And, it doesn't look like they have a ton of necessarily game breakers in the prospect pool just yet. And that's tough, right? Because you look at a team like, say, Calgary, and you could say something similar, like they tore it down. They have talent in the pool. They have prospects. That's exciting. But do you have anyone who's going to be the guy? And you do need a franchise cornerstone to build around. And while it helps that Nashville has them still in place, you want to have that next wave. I don't know if they have that just yet, but I do think they have the assets to find one, if not, and then these young players who come up and be that supporting wave, which is still important to have. So if you have players that can be, have that top 6 potential, maybe they're not franchise forwards, but maybe they're that scoring forward everybody needs, and they can grow into that role when someone like Forsberg ages out of it.
Well, one guy that caught my attention with your evaluation with the model was Zach LaRue, who, after the Predators traded Cole Smith, he sort of took that role. And, of course, we're seeing Cole Smith is doing really good things for Vegas. So it's even put more, I think, emphasis on LaRue, who was a first-round pick. But you seem to see – your model seems to see some upside with him, which was pretty encouraging. So what do the numbers show with him?
So Dom came up with a similarity score, which takes into account a player's – we use the full year, so 6 months older, 6 months younger of what the player is right now. And you use factors like their physical attributes, so their height, their weight, because that is important. Like if you're going to look for similar players, they need to have a similar build, but also play driving. Are they a player that shoots a ton? Do they have a strong defensive value? What's their usage? And you come to all these numbers together and it creates a similarity score and you get a range of outcomes. And at the top of his list, there's really 2 paths you could take. There's that third line utility forward track, right? Jesper Foss, I think, is a great example of that. That's a great defensive threat, a penalty killer, sometimes can jump higher in the lineup, but his core spot, that's a bottom 9 player. And that's a good thing to have, but I wonder if there's more in the tank because he was showing similar traits to players like Ryan Callahan and William Karlsson. And obviously with Karlsson, it's easy to think about that goal scoring year one Vegas. I look at him and think of that shutdown presence who can play make really well and contribute offensively. And I think with Callahan, there's that all situation threat that's a second line forward. That would be that next tier up. And I think if he can follow that track, you could see him as potentially being that answer to who's the next Ryan O'Reilly, who's the next really strong shutdown threat.
See, to me, they have a lot of players in that category that if you have that next level of development, then I can see a pretty good team. But there's also been a recent history, and you can remember some of these names like Phil Tomasino and some others that were first-round picks. And Adam is not afraid to remind everybody the list of first-round picks that the Predators moved on from for one reason or another. So they're kind of due to have some guys blossom. I think another one would be Matt Wood. And so I'm curious to know what you think of him, because you list him, and I got to make sure I got the term right, as depth forward. But I think based on what they saw last year with him at such a young age, I think they hope there's a lot more there for him, especially when he switched to center late in the season.
Yeah, he's only 21, so he's not even near his peak, right? That's mid-20s. So there's a lot of time for him to grow. And it does feel like, you could say they're due. I think it just shows the importance of a team's developmental staff, right? Because the best way to acquire high-end players is through the draft and development process in this league. Free agency doesn't exist. Trades, are hit or miss too as well. And it takes a lot to bring in a difference maker. But if you can find a hidden gem in the draft and, develop them into their ceiling, or even find a new track for them altogether, that can be franchise altering. That can change everything. I don't think the Predators have that yet. You look at teams like Tampa Bay, right? They're probably the perfect example of it, that they just keep finding guys from, they bring them up from Syracuse and they're NHLers already. If you can build the strength of that kind of system, and that's what is going to be a big part of the job for whoever comes in to take over in Nashville, you have a better chance of having those players develop into the best versions of themselves. And that, even if it doesn't give them a franchise forward, right? Say they don't have anyone in the system yet with that ceiling, but you can build a really deep approach and do it probably a little more cost effectively too, right? Because sometimes teams can make the savings when they pay their own guys versus overpaying in the open market, especially in today's NHL. There's a ton of value there. So it does seem like they have some of the pieces. Now it's up to the front office to help them get to that.
Let's tie it into Vegas, because the segment before you came on, Shayna, we had a long talk about could you ever emulate what Vegas does? It just seems like everything they do is working for them. But one thing that I recognize that I think has been a great thing for them is when they have an opportunity to go after a big fish, they dive in and get him. And Nashville has maybe had some chances to do that over the last few years, and they've been a little hesitant. It's not like they haven't made big trades like, PK Subban for Shea Weber and Ryan Johansson for Seth Jones, but a Mitch Marner and a Tomas Hertl, some guys that are on Vegas, those are some big guys that they just went all in to grab. And you kind of mentioned this, you've referred to this. So we've had these philosophical discussions. If somebody like Austin Matthews or Brady Tkachuk, or go down the list, if somebody like that who is rarely available becomes available, they do have the assets to jump in and get that. I'm curious if they take a page out of Vegas's book, if that happens.
I think that is something to learn from Vegas. Like, if they want something, they go for it. They do not care. They're not here to make friends. They're here to build a team. And they're fascinating too, because yes, they had some advantages in the expansion draft, but like, they literally don't care about draft picks. Draft picks are trade capital to them. And I think that's a big part of this lesson here is it's not just that they go after what they want and generally win, because players want to be in Vegas and they have built an environment that, as cutthroat as they are, if you're going to Vegas, you are going there to try and win. There are no questions about it. It's that top-down commitment to that. And that's the key here. Because a couple teams, I think this summer, we're going to see them try to make a big splash. Because if you're going to acquire good players, you're going to have to do it via trade or offer sheet or something bold. But sometimes you can't just stop at one, right? It's not like we look at Nashville and say, well, if they get Jason Robertson, that's it. It's like, okay, if you go after Jason Robertson, what is your next move? Because Vegas is never just one move. They go after literally everyone. And sometimes, it comes at the expense of a certain position. We've seen it over the years that they built up their defense. It came at the expense of their winger depth, or they, finally fixed the center situation. Now they have to replenish on D, and they have to balance out the cost some way to do it. And they walk a tightrope, and they manage to do it really well. And we'll see how long it works out for them. But you look at this is going to be their third Stanley Cup final appearance. They clearly are onto something here. So if Nashville wants to take note, go for something. Go for someone if it's out there. Take that swing. Be bold. Be willing. The fact that they have all of these draft picks, at the very least, could just create problems for other teams. Because even if they don't win the offer sheets over, they can force teams to overspend on their own players and then take them out of the running for others and just play disruptor. That could help. But I would say it's a sequence of moves here. Like, take the page out of Vegas's book where you just go all in. So if they want to make this window work with the core that they have, and there's reason to do so because maybe they can't get out of some of these contracts in the near future, then they have to be ready to just act quickly and aggressively this summer.
Shayna Goldman has been our guest on D-Mace Vingan and Donick. You can read her work at The Athletic. You can also listen to her podcast, Too Many Men. I recommend it. Shayna, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have to do this again soon.
Thanks for having me.
615-737-1025. Let's react to what Shayna had to say. You can too. 615-737-1025. Don't miss GalaxyCon at the Nashville Fairgrounds, May 29th through May 31st. It's a 3-day festival of fandom with celebrities, artists, entertainers, and more. For more information, visit thegamenashville.com/events. We appreciate Elliotte Friedman. He'll be on our show tomorrow. He knows full well that people are going to go insane hearing that.
The minute he said it, that's why he had to say, "Don't know why to go insane."
We'll talk to Elliotte more about that tomorrow. But he said twice before anybody goes insane because he knows.
Too late.
Knows.
It's already got insane. Yeah.
The idea of I was texting with someone today about that clip, and I said, "This is your worst nightmare." Barry Trotz sticking around for another year. No disrespect to Barry Trotz, of course. We all love Barry Trotz on the program.
Well, I have to believe that Barry Trotz, based on everything he has said, that would not be what he is planning on.
Yeah.
You know, like you saw the emotion the day that he announced the retirement and his desire to be closer to family, all of that stuff. I would be surprised if he's sitting there going, boy, I think I might get one more year.
Can't wait.
I don't think that's where they are. But, you know, when Elliotte says something, I'm not.
Don't go crazy, Willie.
Right. I'm not going to go insane.
Yeah, don't
I'm
go
not going insane. Remember Will Ferrell in Old School? He's like, you can't lose your cool, people. You can't lose your cool. Keep your composure.
We'll have
that's
Elliotte.
what he's asking you.
Yes, we'll have
Keep your
Elliotte on the
composure.
program tomorrow at 5, and we'll surely ask him about that. We appreciate Shayna Goldman from The Athletic coming on the program to discuss her story with the headline, Predators Stanley Cup Contender Checklist. How can Nashville escape the mushy middle? And I think she did a really good job elaborating on what she wrote earlier this week at The Athletic. But Derrick, you were taken by something that Shayna said at the end of our conversation.
Yeah, I think, and maybe like you are a East Coast guy. And she's from New York. Maybe it's just the New York inner that makes it.
She's got the accent.
Yes, and it makes it, like you said, a little bit more spicy,
grittier. You know.
So maybe it was that, but to me, it's either use the bathroom or get up.
That's the nice way.
That's the nice way to say it. I said it a different way off air. I can't say it that way, but either use it or lose it. Use it or move it. Either. Because these contracts you have, you're stuck with them unless you find a way to trade, get these guys on another team and trade them. But for the time being, you have these contracts. So it's either let's go all in and try to win it with this group with smart moves. And you can do that because you guys mentioned, the first round picks that they have.
So one thing the Predators can do, it doesn't happen very often in the NHL, is the Predators can sign a pending restricted free agent to an offer sheet. Remember, we were just reminiscing about this during the break, years and years and years and years ago, when Shea Weber signed an offer sheet with the Philadelphia Flyers. By the way, that contract expires in a month. Can you believe it?
We got to have a party. We got to have a celebration for that. I cannot believe
that
it.
contract expires in 1 month.
I thought there was still another year. There had to be another
signed
year.
Signed 14 years ago.
Yes.
Well,
we can name Shea Weber Day.
It's going to be Shea Weber Day, June 30th. Mark it down.
And then the next day is Bobby Bonilla Day, July 1st, right?
Oh, that's another great day. Another great day, especially for a Met fan. Bobby Bonilla Day.
So how offer sheets work is if you want to target another team's restricted free agent, you put the contract together, and depending on what the annual average value of the contract is, if the player accepts the offer sheet, his team doesn't match, you have to give up a certain number of your own draft picks. So, for example, Jason Robertson, the high-scoring forward in Dallas. He'll be, I think I said 27 this summer. Fabulous player. I thought it was an abomination that he was left off of Team USA, although Team USA did win Olympic gold.
There's only so much you can complain when you win the gold medal.
Right, but
that was a big one. That was a big one.
I certainly think Jason Robertson deserved to be on the team. Predators fans know Jason Robertson. He's tortured them for years.
He's a great player.
There are questions about his future in Dallas. If the Predators, for example, want to offer an offer sheet to Jason Robertson with a cap hit of $12 million per season, because let's be real, Jason Robertson, he's going to command that sort of salary.
You got to get in that ballpark if you want to play.
The Predators would have to give up 4 of their own first-round picks. 4 of them.
Which they do have.
They can pull this off. And even if the Predators do this and Dallas says, there's no way we're letting Jason Robertson go. We'll match that offer sheet. Well, it screws up their cap potentially. And you've hindered a division rival in the process. And that's what Shayna was talking about, being a disruptor. Maybe you don't get the player, but you screw another team in the process, one that you have to face 5-6 times a year.
That's cutthroat right there.
Indeed.
Let me ask a question about that particular guy, because there's other offer sheets you can offer, because one thing we have noted many times about the Predators, they don't just have their first-round picks. They've got a slew of other draft picks in other rounds. And so depending on who you're going after and what you're going to offer them, it might be a different package of picks that you're giving up. So if you wanted to do this, right, and go cutthroat and saying, we're going to get Jason Robertson, we are going to offer something he absolutely has to take, and they will not match. Would it include this year's first-round pick, which is the 10th pick in the draft? Or I guess the offer sheet wouldn't come until after July 1st, right? You would still have the 10th pick. So that's important to note, right?
I believe that is correct.
Yeah. So it wouldn't, because you can't even do the offer sheet until after July. That would be after the draft. So to me, that's important, right? You have to be thinking, well, what are those draft picks going to look like? Like so this would definitely be an all-in kind of move that Shayna was talking about, going for the big fish. If you want Vegas, that would be a Vegas type of thing. Disregard the value of draft picks, because I do think you could argue that Robertson, it's not like Robertson's 31. Robertson is how old, Adam?
He'll be 27 in July.
Now that's even younger than it seems, because he has been in the league for a while.
This season, he had 45 goals and 96 points in 82 games. When he was in his age 23 season in 2022-2023, 46 goals, 109 points.
I mean, he's a great player, and he is still got a lot of tread on the tires. So I think you could justify 4 first-round picks.
And you have them all. What's the use of, accumulating these picks when you're not going to use them in a way that, because realistically, if you're thinking about, your team getting better, you're thinking we're going to be drafting outside of the top 15 anyway, if you're thinking from that standpoint. So what is it to give up the next 4 first-round picks in order to get a guy that's young and is going to be with his friend? He is a, sort of trendsetter in the sense of he's a lead dog.
And this, again, comes down to what the new GM thinks of the prospects that they already have. Because if you're going to give up the next 4 first-round picks, you better know, because what we've been saying all along, in another year or two, it's just not realistic to expect that Ryan O'Reilly and Steven Stamkos and Roman Josi are going to be the same guys. They are going to age some, if not extremely, right? There's always a chance when you get 35, 36 that you really dip. So what do you think of Igor Surin? And what do you think of Brady Martin? All these guys that are already in the system, plus whoever they're going to pick at number 10. You better be sure that core that we don't know what they're going to look like when they arrive in Nashville is going to give you a lot. Because if you're going to mortgage 4 first-round picks, you have the certainty of Robertson, who's still in his mid to high 20s. You can expect he's going to be around for a while. But what's around him, especially in another 2 or 3 years?
Quickly, some reaction. One texter says, I think the best route is in the middle of these 2 extremes. Get out from some of these contracts, get even more draft capital and cap space, have one more down year where young kids get more ice time, and then turn on the Vegas aggressive acquisition machine. Matthew from Jolton says, Jason Robertson wouldn't fix the issue. You have to try and get a center. Understood. I mean, Jason Robertson, pretty damn good player. But I understand the point.
He's going to make whoever's centering him better.
We're looking at if Predators fans want the team to emulate the Vegas Golden Knights, this is one thing they can do to accomplish that. And as Shayna said, even if you don't get the player, you can cause a whole bunch of trouble for another team's salary cap by matching that offer. So, I mean, another texter says, Jason Robertson is not a center. Why would you offer sheet him and lose 4 years of first when you do not have a number 1 center for the future? Again, do you want the team to be good? Do you want the team
to be like Vegas? I see a lot
of
of people text, be like Vegas.
Exactly.
Well, this would be a Vegas
type. Do you
type
want the team to be good? Jason Robertson is a fantastic player. I know he's not a center, But Jason, like, I just read to you some of his numbers. When have you heard those numbers uttered with the Nashville Predators? Not very often. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, let's keep the theme of championship checklists because one notable NFL analyst shared his championship checklist, and we will go over that with the Tennessee Titans coming up next. 615-737-1025. The 615 Open Golf Tournament might be sold out. It's tomorrow, by the way, but you can bid on all kinds of awesome experiences to directly support Folds of Honor at 615open.com/auction. Have an unforgettable time while supporting a great cause. That's 615open.com/auction. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Nute here with you. Let's continue with the theme of championship checklists. We had Shayna Goldman on in the first hour talking about the Predators championship checklist. She wrote an analysis about that for The Athletic earlier this week. And yesterday on X, Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network posted something interesting along similar lines. He said, quote, "I'd like to revisit this concept for every NFL team. To build a championship foundation, you need to fill these 12 spots. Quarterback, 1. Offensive playmaker, 3. Quality offensive lineman, 3. Pass rusher, 2. Defensive playmaker, 3. So according to Daniel Jeremiah, to build a championship foundation, you need to fill those 12 spots. I'll repeat them. Quarterback, 1. Offensive playmaker, 3. Quality offensive lineman, 3.
Oh, 3. Sorry. Bad math.
Pass rusher, 2.
Oh.
Defensive playmaker, 3. That equals 12.
There you go.
So let's do this exercise for the Tennessee Titans. How many of those spots do they have filled? I would argue at the moment they have 3 of the 12. I would say they have 1 quality offensive lineman in Peter Skoronski. He's the only one I would say with confidence because I'm still unsure about J.C. Latham. The potential is there, but I thought Peter Skoronski proved last season to be one of the best guards in the NFL. And I know he's a guard, but that qualifies for Daniel Jeremiah's championship checklist. And then I would say the Titans do fill the requirements for the 2 pass rushers in Jeffrey Simmons and John Franklin Myers. So
John Franklin Myers qualifies in your mind.
I would
not J.C. Latham.
Well, I think John Franklin Myers has
Proven
a longer track record than J.C. Latham in that regard. I can pull up Myers' stats in just a moment, but that's just my initial assessment. 3 of the 12 spots, according to Daniel Jeremiah. 1 quality offensive lineman and 2 pass rushers. I would say confidently the Titans have that.
Outside of those 3 players that you named, there's not much that we can point to. Now we can point to potential. They potentially have the quarterback. They potentially have 1 of the 3 playmakers on offense, possibly 2 with Helm. They, like you said, they have 2 of the 3 defensive players. So on potential, yes, I would say potentially they have, what would it be, 7 of the 12? But we only know for sure 2. And that's the 2 interior linemen, defensive linemen. Well, 3 to 2 interior defensive linemen and your left guard. Outside of that, everything else is just a potential thing.
So how many would you say definitively they have on this list?
I think definitively
2.
So I have 3 and you have 2.
Well, that's why I asked about Franklin Myers. That's your 3rd. And I just don't know enough about him to know that he is clearly in this category.
Well, here's
until I see him do it.
Here's what Teron Davenport, our friend TD, wrote about the Titans acquiring Franklin Myers. Quote, "Franklin Myers' under-the-radar production in the Broncos pass rush is his biggest value. His consistent inside pressure, he was 4th on the team with 15 quarterback hits this past season, often creates sacks for others. Zach Allen, for one, has consistently said that Franklin Myers was one of the reasons he was the league leader in quarterback hits this past season. Still, Franklin Myers had 7.5 sacks last season and 7 in 2024 to help the Broncos set franchise records for sacks in each of the last 2 seasons."
Well, I mean,
I apologize. That was not from Toronto. It was just from an ESPN, no byline, but there you go.
But if you look at it over the last 2 years based upon the production, then yes, you have to add him in there as a, playmaker on your defensive side of the ball. You've already added the guard. So essentially, yeah, you do have 3. Now he has to prove it with the Titans. Did the Titans get a guy that, is for some reason in a decline. He's young enough. He shouldn't be, and I don't expect him to be. Or you would getting a guy that is just going to consistently play this way for the next 2 or 3 years, where he's, getting anywhere from 5 to 8 sacks. And if that is indeed the case, then yeah, you got 2 on defense and 1 on offense.
So let's go through the checklist from Daniel Jeremiah spot by spot.
Okay.
Obviously, quarterback 1.
TBD.
Yeah.
To be determined on Cam Ward. Offensive playmaker 3.
To be determined, you have 2.
Right. We got one guy that we haven't seen play a game yet.
Okay. Who would be your 3?
Wan'Dale
Robinson,
Tate, and Helm. I would say those 3.
And Gunnar Helm. Interesting choice.
Well, no, okay. I don't know why I didn't think about this. In a way, they have 4 because DK is a playmaker for their team, whether it's on special teams or is at the receiver position, or if they put him in, he is a playmaker. So if I am looking at it from that standpoint, they have 4, but they have an outlier that you can kind of put him from an offensive standpoint just about anywhere. So I would say 4.
Willie, do you agree with Derrick?
They're not there yet. I think you would hope out of that group. Mm-hmm. And Wan'Dale Robinson, playmaker, I don't know if I see that. I think very solid, but it depends on how you define playmaker. Yeah. Like, is he a guy that's going to really impact the other team's game planning? I want to see it. I want to see him in a Titans uniform week in and week out to determine if he's that level. I think if nothing else, hopefully he'll be a good, solid outlet that makes a positive difference. But to me, there's that, and then there's playmaker. Certainly Tate, he's got to end up on this list if this is going to go to project when the Super Bowl comes to Nashville, the Titans are going to be in this mix. Like, it's got to happen for Tate. Helm is a really interesting one. I do think he has got a skill set that could get him on that list. He's not there yet. But I would put him on a list of guys that, okay, let's see. These are young players. I certainly hope that Latham will get there. I think he absolutely should get there. He's still very young. And I'd be disappointed if he doesn't end up on a list of quality offensive linemen. We're not talking about like awesome offensive linemen. We're talking about quality offensive linemen.
Can you see Cedric Gray being on that list?
Yes. I was just going to say the most interesting for me on the Titans, the most interesting of these categories from Daniel Jeremiah is defensive playmaker. You need 3 of them, according to Jeremiah. Who are those players on the Tennessee Titans? Here's another question. Can players overlap? Can Jeffrey Simmons, for example, be in the pass rusher category, but also the defensive playmaker category?
I would say no. I that's like,
he is a defensive playmaker.
I think you need 12 guys. Yes. That's how I envision this. You need 12.
I do as well. So I think if you put Simmons in the pass rusher category, you do not put him in the defensive playmaker category. So
I don't think you can double.
So if you're looking at linebacker, corner, safety, who are those players? Who are those defensive playmakers? Is it Alontae Taylor? Is it Cedric Gray? Could it be Anthony Hill?
Yeah. But
who are those players? Who would you include in that mix?
Wow.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, it is. Because I'm like Willie when it comes to, the new guys, because I haven't watched them the way I've watched Cedric Gray and Harris and these other guys that have been on the squad over the last year or so. So when you're talking about the 2 corners, yes, they played well for another team, but I don't know what they're going to look like here with the Tennessee Titans playing in this Robert Saleh's defense. Do they, based upon their contracts and how aggressive the Titans were in getting those individuals, you hope that they become a playmaker on your defense, if not a good player, if nothing else. But ultimately, you want them to become playmakers out there. And it all depends on how you define it. Because to me, Cedric Gray will never be the flashy guy. But playmaking, just like Wan'Dale Robinson, it's not necessarily about scoring touchdowns or getting sacks. It's about making plays in moments.
Rock solid every week, making plays. A lot of tackles, a lot of catches.
4th and 5, going in, and you need it. and you throw it to Wandale, he catches it. He is a playmaker.
Yeah.
Because you're going to him to make plays. And if you do that consistently and you hit more than you miss, then you are a playmaker for us. That goes for Cedric Gray, and that goes for those corners. But to me, Cedric Gray has that potential. And will it be, realized in his solid defense? We don't know yet.
Well, here's a name we have not mentioned, but if we had done this a year ago, would we have put Calvin Ridley on the list of playmakers? Like it just shows you how it can change from year to year. I think there was an encouraging first season,
yes,
if not great. And I think we all thought, okay, they've got at least the guy that's going to get you 1,000 yards. And we know he had the nightmare last year with injuries. And even when he was playing, it wasn't super productive. And he took a big step back. Now we're not even nominating him as a playmaker, but there could be a bounce back. We don't know.
When I look at the offensive playmaker category, you mentioned it, Willie. The Titans hope and pray that Carnell Tate becomes one of those three players. If Wandale Robinson can build off of his career year last year, perhaps he qualifies. And you need at least one of the DK, Aya Manor, Helm crew to fill that spot. I'm not sure I would put Tony Pollard in that category. I know he consistently runs for 1,000 yards, but I'm not sure I'd put Tony Pollard in that category. I wouldn't put Tajay Spears in that category. To me, Tate is the closest thing, but again, we haven't seen him on the field in an NFL game yet, so you're hoping and wishing that he fills that category. But again, to me, of course, Cam Ward, a lot of it hinges on Cam Ward.
Yes.
But of these categories that Daniel Jeremiah listed, quarterback 1, offensive playmaker 3, quality offensive line 3, pass rusher 2, defensive playmaker 3. The one that has me scratching my head the most is defensive playmaker.
This list, which right now we agree 3 is about the max you could go to. If this list in a year is not up to 5 or 6, then that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
They need to add a couple guys to this list,
mainly the quarterback,
regardless of how many. Well, the quarterback is that might be worth more than one on the list, right? That's worth a lot. But they've got this year, I think it's the last year of the old stadium. Nobody's expecting them to be great, at least not me. But this is still a sort of a searching. What do you got? Play the young guys. See who emerges. Can these guys who had encouraging rookie years take a step forward? How many? They're not all going to, but if a couple do, that's good. The offensive line. Can Latham get on this list next year? These are all questions. But if the list one way or another doesn't double and at least get to 5 or 6, then that's a problem.
Matthew from Jolton, he's much more optimistic than we are. He says, established players, the Titans have 6. Wandale Robinson, Chim DK, Peter Skoronski, John Franklin Myers, Jeffrey Simmons, and Cedric Gray. Possibly you can add Cam Ward, J.C. Latham, Alante Taylor, and Anthony Hill. I appreciate your optimism. That's double what I
just
would
don't
have.
think the Daniel Jeremiahs of the league would not see it that way, I don't think.
One texter says, I think Kevin Winston has the ability to be a defensive playmaker.
Listen, there are several guys on this team that have the potential. But we've been talking about potential with the Titans for a while now. And not with these guys in particular, but with guys that have come before them. And for whatever reason, they haven't been able to reach that potential. So, yes, you do have guys that have the potential, like Cedric Gray. I think Cedric Gray is more closer to being a playmaker than not. And maybe, again, in this solid defense, that will come out. But you have guys that are sort of like either question mark or fringe guys, and they need that extra season to sort of come into their own. And DK is one of them. To me, I believe he's a playmaker, but he's not a playmaker in the sense of what, like you need three offensive guys. He wouldn't sort of fit that for an offense because he hadn't made enough plays consistently on offense. But if you're just talking about holistically, yeah, he is one of their playmakers because what he was able to do on a special end of special teams end of it was the bright spot for this team that didn't have many.
615-737-1025. Daniel Jeremiah posted, to build a championship foundation, you need to fill these 12 spots. Quarterback, 1. Offensive playmaker, 3. Quality offensive lineman, 3. Pass rusher, 2. Defensive playmaker, 3. I think the Titans today have 3 of those spots filled. Derrick and Willie say 2. How many do you think they have? 615-737-1025. We'll take your reaction to that. Plus, coming up next, I'm very excited about this. We need to bust out the wide receiver translator because the Titans were roasted by, I don't know how you describe this guy. He calls himself the route god. And I'd rather ask a wide receiver with 15 years of experience in the NFL about something that the route god criticized the Titans about. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Speaking of us here at 1025, we are your racing station. This weekend, catch all the action as NASCAR comes to the Nashville Superspeedway on 1025 The Game, presented by City Auto and Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery. On Friday, there's the Allegiance 200 at 6:30 p.m. On Saturday, there's the Sports Illustrated Resorts 250 at 6 p.m. And on Sunday, there's the Cracker Barrel 400 at 5 p.m. Sponsored by City Auto of Murfreesboro with 500 plus vehicles under $30,000 and zero hassle. Visit cityautomitsubishi.com. D Mace, Vingan, and Donick 1025 the game. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan here with you.
And let me just duck in that from the moment Derrick entered the building today, he had the bag.
Yes.
Susie cakes. So I was locked in and I have absolutely buried the cupcake. It took me about 10 seconds. I was eyeing it. As soon as that door opened, I was like, oh, he's got the bag.
I got the
He's
plug,
got it.
man. I got the plug. I got the plug. Susie is my plug.
With as much money as you spend there.
And her friend Q.
I mean, we could use a sponsor.
Hey,
Put the pressure on Derrick Mason.
Talk to Susie and Q together.
Yes. Susie Q?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Together at cromwellmedia.com.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Together at cromwellmedia.com if you want to sponsor the program. All right. There is one thing I absolutely loathe about NFL Twitter /X. And that is when people freak out over the 10-second practice clips that teams post in the offseason. It's like, here's Cam Ward wearing no pads, not being pressured, throwing a pass to Carnell Tate. And the camera zooms in on the ball.
They slow it up.
You see the perfect spiral. It speeds right back up as Carnell Tate catches it. Oh, my God, look at the connection between Cam Ward and Carnell Tate. And something happened recently that proves my point about how much I loathe this aspect of NFL social media. So, as I understand it, the Tennessee Titans posted a clip of Carnell Tate at OTAs last week. And Derrick, what kind of drill was Carnell Tate doing?
It just seemed like just a hip drop drill that they were doing. You know, getting to the top of your, top of your route, dropping your hips, and then exploding forward, side to side. But in this particular one, I think they were jogging, dropping their hips, and then running and making a speed cut left or right. So that the drill tries to emulate, again, you breaking down at the top of your route, or you doing a stutter go, or you running, again, because these routes have changed since I played, you running a stutter out, breaking down, accelerating, 3 steps and then rolling into an out or rolling into an in. So it's trying to simulate that. Nothing more, nothing less.
So you have no issue with this drill?
Not necessarily, because again, it's only a clip. I don't know what else they may have been doing. Sometimes, and again, everything that you do on a football field, I believe, should emulate what you're going to do in a game. Yes, the dropping of the hips. Yes, the rolling. You're going to do those things in a game. Coming off the line of scrimmage kind of slow, depending on if it's off, and you got to hesitate a minute and then get into your route because you're waiting for that guy to either run a seam route or to give you a pick, and then you go. So everything that you do on a football field, especially from a wide receiver standpoint, wants to emulate something you're going to do on the field. So again, I have no problem whatsoever because I don't know what else that they were doing.
But you know who does have a problem with it? The route god.
The route god.
The route god himself.
Ooh, the route god.
AKA James Everett Jr. He has 619,000 followers on Instagram. And
Is that a lot?
Seems like a lot.
That's a lot.
Seems like a lot. It's more than I have.
No, it's definitely more than I bet. But I'm just saying, like, some people are like, nah, that ain't a lot. I got like 2 million.
It's an impressive number.
Okay.
I mean, Connor is the youth correspondent on the program.
Yes.
Connor, are you familiar with the route god even before all of this?
I am familiar with the route.
Okay.
How did you get to know the route god?
I mean,
How did you discover the route god?
as a
I had
youthful mind,
absolutely no clue who this guy was. So how did you find out?
he shows up on my reels on Instagram,
okay.
and I'm not a fan of him. I think he is a fake wide receiver trainer. He claims he trains NFL guys, but if he trains NFL guys, why is he not on a staff? So,
Well, okay, but we're going to get into that because that is the thing.
But before we do that,
But who does he train? Does he train? Like, do we have names? Does he have a thing where he lists the guys that he's worked with?
not that I've seen.
Okay.
Does he have a website? I guess not. He has to.
he sells merch when I looked up his website.
Okay.
He sells merch. But before we get to the conversation, by the way, I was when I was thinking about the route god, when I was planning the show, Joan Osborne song came in my head. What if God was one of us? Well, it's route god, I suppose.
Yes.
So let's play part of the clip of route god's criticism again. This is a clip. I don't know how long the clip of Carnell Tate is. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Here is part of route god's criticism of this drill.
I just like to make things make sense. They got them jobs and they might know more X's and O's than me, meaning the on the board stuff, the coverage stuff, and stuff like that. But we talking about overall movement. When I tell y'all about these 20 minutes, these 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes that you get in individual with your receiver coach or whoever that movement specialist is there, this is the times in y'all off season why y'all come to people like us, people like me, people like Goldfeet, people like Receiver Factory, people like everybody else over the nation who doing good work. They translate the game movement wise and make it make sense. We know that you're not going to get as much movement work as you need during the season, but this right here don't make no sense. We're doing a hip drop drill, then we roll into a speed cut. For what? Either work the hip drop, work the dive stop, work the snap down, and come out of a break. These is break points, not speed cuts. Speed cuts is a different thing. So this is what I'm telling you. The disconnect is we just don't get our respect.
He says more,
Mm-hmm.
but he's got a potty mouth, so we can't play it on the show. Perhaps I can clean it up and read it later.
Mm-hmm.
But Derrick,
Yes.
as someone who played wide receiver at a high level in the NFL for 15 years, does this route god, do his criticisms have merit?
Yes and no. And listen, I don't know why he chose to grab that clip, the Titans. Does he train, Carnell Tate? Has he trained Carnell Tate? Has he trained anybody on the Titans team? I don't know. But I don't understand why he picked this clip out to attack. Again, it's a 20-second clip of things that they were doing. What he's essentially saying is he's not saying what they doing, like the movements are wrong. He's just saying work them separately from one another. And listen, for those that can't do, they what? Teach. Exactly. So,
And those who can't teach
Jim.
exactly.
Yeah.
That too.
Nat
That's true.
Schneebly.
Exactly.
Yes, had to do it.
But
Dewey Finn.
it's like, okay, you do have a point, but you don't know, the big scheme of things, what they're doing. Everything that they're doing, I think, translate to the game, whether it be the hip drop, like he said, or the speed cut. In his mind, don't do them all together. But he said it. You don't have time to do them all separately. You just don't. You get a certain amount of minutes. I'm telling you, it's like a fire drill. Seriously. You get a certain amount of time to do all your drills before practice starts, before we get into our practice. So you don't have the time necessarily. That's why you got OTAs and stuff like this. But even this stuff, you're still not getting the time that you need. So again, that's what has made his business profitable. Because the NFL said, and the player said, we don't want to be here as much. Okay, if y'all don't want to be here, then y'all got to find your own means of working out with somebody. So guys like, route god, I don't know how
we think he does.
Like, why what makes him route god? Listen,
Is that blasphemous?
I think it is.
Wait, let's ask Connor.
But it is.
Connor, does the route god put clips out on his Instagram of him working with NFL receivers and showing these proper drills?
He does with receivers. I don't know.
Yeah,
if
I don't know if
NFL,
they're
but
NFL
they are
okay.
receivers.
I just looked at it before then. I didn't know who, and not
Yeah.
to say because I didn't know he wasn't a known entity or person. He was. It's just I didn't know because I had no reason to go look at his page. Now I got a cousin that teaches wide receivers, but outside of that, I never seen this guy. But that doesn't mean he isn't teaching good stuff. My thing is that why do you have to take that clip and make it seem like what the coaches are doing is completely wrong?
Right. He's trying to make the coach look bad.
You got to understand you have a job because we don't have the time no more within the sport to work on crafts in the building. So you go out and you hire guys like Route Guy in hopes that they can fine tune, and then when you come back, you can implement some of those things in drills, or you may be able to tell a coach or things you can do after practice that some other guys may latch on and want to do. So I just don't understand the sort of it's almost like jealousy in a sense, or he's mad because he's not getting the recognition that he thinks he deserves. Well, that's nobody's fault but the players that you're training, because they're the only way you're going to get people to notice you. What is that? The people you train, they go out and tell people. You got to start training NFL guys. I mean, top tier NFL guys.
The only notable NFL wide receiver, I'm looking at his Instagram, and he's got the reels labeled. The only wide receiver whose name I recognize is Deontay Johnson.
So, I mean, and again, it's almost as if he's a little upset that, people are not mentioning him in the sense of this is a guy that you need to go to or whatnot. Because again, what made you, unless somebody sent it to you, but what made you pick out that clip? Is he a Nashville guy? I don't know. Maybe he is. Or a Tennessee guy, period, living in the state. But what made him pick out that one?
There are so many skills coaches. Let's just put them all in one bucket. That I think that is a really interesting dynamic that I have seen grow over the years. It's always been sort of out there, but a skills coach that's working outside of a team, how the relationship works between the skills coach and the team can be a lot of different things. This is quite unique because of the social media aspect of it, but I'd love to get into that in our next segment.
Let's do it. 615-737-1025. The route god has spoken. Again, is it not a little blasphemous to refer to yourself as God? Did we not learn anything?
You should just spell God.
Unless
G-A-W-D.
it's God Sham God, who used to play for Providence. That was his name. That was the name his mom gave him.
If that's your government name, then that's fine. Maybe his name is Route God. I don't know. It's not
Mr. God.
I believe it's what did I say? His name was James Everett Jr. Yes. So his government name does not involve the word God. 615.
And again, it's questionable when you nickname yourself.
Exactly.
Right.
Very questionable.
Is somebody calling you God, or are you self-proclaimed God? There's a gigantic difference here. It's not cool when you give yourself a nickname. Like that's the uncoolest thing you can do. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 1025 the game.
On the bus, yes.
Is Route God one of us? Is he a slob like one of us? Does he ride the bus like one of us?
Just to make his way home.
Just to
Yeah.
make his way home and criticize the Titans.
Listening to a DVD on the way.
Oh, man. All right. So here's what we're discussing. A popular NFL, well, how Connor, since you're the young one, how would I accurately describe Route God? Is he an influencer? Would you call him an NFL influencer? A coach, a skills coach, a private coach? What's the proper job title? Seriously.
First off, is that what I am to you now? The young one? That's what I am?
The young one.
The young
Well,
one?
you are the young one.
The Padawan? Is that what you're
Yes,
calling me?
you are the little
We
one.
have several
Padawan.
people that we just didn't call them their names. We just called them what, deep
You're-
voice guy.
You're still
Hey,
Connor.
Nute.
The one. Nute.
Hey, yo, Nute.
You're giving me high school football flashbacks. But yeah, I would describe the Route God as an influencer / trainer. I mean, Adam, you looked at his Instagram. He doesn't really train wide receivers that are, really active in the NFL. Like Deontay Johnson was the most notable one. Ray McLeod was on there, who was a returner for the Steelers for a long time. But I would say he's like a weird combination between an actual athletic trainer and an influencer. But I think he leans more on the side of, let's see how much commotion on the interwebs I can cause.
Well, mission accomplished.
That's an important question, because what's the goal for him to make a living? Is his goal to end up being a respected skills coach that NFL coaches like, hey, this guy, Route God, he knows what he's doing. We need to tap into his brain. We need to bring him aboard. Or, I want to send my wide receiver in the offseason to this guy. Or is he just trying to, like you guys said, create commotion, get clicks? Because when he says we don't get respect, well, you're not going to get it by getting loud on the internet and criticizing NFL coaches. They're going to go the other way, right? They're going to say, who's this guy? We know what we're doing here. So that's an important question. But I think the big issue is a lot of times being able to mesh individual skills coaches who are, as Route God says, I always laugh when I'm saying Route God, but he says, look, the X's and O's are a big part of it, right? You have to teach as a position coach. You got to teach the receivers what to do on each play. And that is separate than individual skill development, right? And we have criticized the NFL because they don't have a minor league system. So you have to develop on the fly while you're teaching a team concept. So in the offseason, these things can be very valuable. I think it applies to other sports. But it can be confusing, because I'll give you my perspective. I remember going to the Blue Jays in the minor leagues, and I had been taught the game. I'm 22 years old. I had ways of, what's my footwork around first base? How am I handling ground balls? What's my swing? And then I get very respected coaches who I would say were a little bit old school. And one of them was Bill Buckner, the Bill Buckner. He's now the late Bill Buckner, but the Bill Buckner. And it was funny in the Blue Jays camp, like, don't bring up 86. Don't bring up the Red Sox. But he was a roving minor league instructor. We're like, okay, no problem. Me being a Mets fan, like, hey, Bill. But
What happened?
very nice guy, and he'd done amazing things in the game. His way of teaching things was certainly not the way I had been taught. So what am I going to do? Say no to Bill Buckner? And the Blue Jays are going, you're not listening to Bill Buckner? He's got 2,700 hits or whatever it was. But his line of teaching did not fall in line with how I had been taught. And I do think there are sometimes more than one way of training. And I do think this happens sometimes, is I get some of these players, whether it's a wide receiver in football, a skater in hockey, these guys are out there in hockey a lot. The skills coach, the skating coach, the skill development. If it doesn't fall in line with the way the team is teaching it, then there can be a friction there.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to bring up. And Route God, I cannot.
Maybe we just call him Everett.
Yeah, I'm calling him Everett. Everett.
RG.
RG, yes. RG. No, I'm not. He
RG
calls
Everett?
himself, the route god. So, I'm not going to say anything outside of that. But I think what he has to understand is, look, what you are teaching these men, it's good. But what they're learning in their building is essential to them remaining on the team, because they can work out with you every day in the off season and come back to the building and still not make the team for whatever reason. And that's not to say that he's teaching them anything wrong, because I don't think he is. It's just that he said it. Listen, I got to be able to, whatever I'm teaching these guys, is it transferable to what they're doing within their offensive scheme? If it's not, then you can't use it. Well, if that is indeed the case, you, as a trainer, and I'm not saying that he's not doing this, as a trainer, guys that you train, you need to study their offense to know what's applicable and what isn't. We was always taught when I was, get to point A, from point A to point B as fast as you possibly can. You don't have time to sit here and dilly-dally at the line of scrimmage. You just don't. Well, now football, you have time to sort of make all of these extra moves at the line of scrimmage and then get into your route, or make these moves at the top of your route and then get into whatever route you're running. The game has changed. So you're still able, now you're able to do some of these things that these outside trainers are teaching you. You're able to do them within the offense. Why? Because the offenses nowadays are more wide open. They're more fluid. They have movement. They give you time to come off the line of scrimmage. Nobody's pressing like they used to back in the day. Ain't nobody in your face every play, because back then they can hold and grab you. They can't do that now, which is a great thing. So these things that you're teaching them may be applicable to what they're doing on the field. But I think he has to understand that, listen, this is hand in hand. One isn't better than the other. It's not. What you're teaching them is essential, but what the coaches are teaching them is essential as well. And he's sort of, it's almost like he's fighting against, in a sense, of what they're doing on the field, because it's not exactly how he's doing. I've always told people, listen, it may not have been done the way you did it, but it got done the right way. You may have taken 2 lefts and then arrived. I may not have to do that, but there's nothing wrong with that. We got the job done.
Yeah, a lot of times there's more than one way to be
Exactly.
effective.
Absolutely.
And I think a good skills coach can have a conversation with a player and say, okay, how are you being used? What are they teaching you? And even communicate with the team.
Exactly.
And look, this starts at the youth level. My son went through all the travel ball. We were not one that had a hitting coach outside of the team or a pitching specialist, to work. We didn't do that. I didn't think that was the best thing, but a lot of people swear by that. But it can get complicated if your coach, your youth league coach, is teaching one thing and your outside instructor is teaching another. That can be really confusing, and you got too much rolling around a kid's head. But so I think working side by side is essential. And to get the, quote, respect that RG Everett is looking for, I think he would be wise to work alongside of the people and not come out and just shoot down and say, these guys are stupid. That's basically what these posts are saying. Look how dumb this is, this drill.
But again, I don't know why.
That's not going to make any favor. It's not going to help anything.
Why did he choose to point out the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah.
Of all teams. And again, has he worked with one of these wide receivers? Has he worked with anybody that has been a wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans over the last, 5 seasons? What made him pick this out? And again, he said some things that are true. I'm not sitting here and saying, oh, he was just completely wrong, but he has to understand too, is that, this thing has to be worked hand in hand. What you're teaching them, hopefully they can apply it to what they're doing on the field, but ultimately they have to be able to do it within the framework of how this offense is ran. Some of these movements, like whether you're a well-known trainer or not, it's like, man, you just don't have time to get to, and then you're thinking about these moves all the time. And it's like, you didn't move yourself out of a route.
Here's another thing that I think happens. And if you saw the movie Moneyball, you saw this in play with the stat nerds, right? Adam, there was a time where any old school baseball guy would have listened to the Moneyball people, Brad Pitt, but really the other characters who are bringing the numbers to the real life Billy Bean, right?
When I point at you, you speak, right?
Yeah.
That's the
What does he do? He gets on base,
Yes.
right? But this is Jonah Hill's character, who was just a stat guy, right? The old school guys who used to play the game would say, why would I ever listen to this mathematician guy?
David Justice.
Right. So
Jeremy Giambi.
That was the conflict within the game.
Yes.
Well, we now know
it worked.
That they were onto something. And now all of baseball and all of sports is changed. So when a guy like Route God, who I presume did not play NFL football, I don't know if he played college or high school or anything like that, when he's saying all these things, I know this, and these blockheads who are coaching wide receivers that just were used to be wide receivers, they don't know anything. I can't say for sure that he's wrong because of what happened in Moneyball, right? But if you're critical of it, like how do you get in the group, and how do you change people's thinking? How do you work with the team if you are on the cutting edge and maybe you are innovative, maybe you are seeing some things? But this isn't the way to do it on social media.
Again, if you have a wide receiver that is on someone's team, whether it be college or pro, and you have a few of them, or if you just have that one, I think if you want to grow your business, I think it would be imperative for you to reach out to the wide receivers coach at those respective teams, whether it be, again, college or pro, because you will get a better understanding of what he wants from the player and how you can enhance his ability. Because listen, there probably are some wide receivers out there wide receiver coaches with huge egos, but there are some wide receiver coaches that are like, okay, this is what my player needs, because if my player gets better, I keep my job. Or it may parlay me into getting a offensive coordinator job or a head coaching job, like the wide receiver coach for Ohio State, who's now the head coach. Where is he the head coach at? USF.
Brian Hartline.
So, but Brian Hartline he played in the league. He obviously went to Ohio State and did a really good job, but he parlayed that coaching, grooming wide receivers, producing wide receivers. He parlayed that into a head coaching job.
I do think in theory, just because you played wide receiver in the league, and this is a point that the guys at AZ Sports who did a piece on this, I think this is a good point that they made. Sometimes the benefit of the doubt is given to a former player who is now a position coach. But that doesn't necessarily mean that former player, just because he did it, is a good teacher. You can be a guy that, quote, never played, who ends up being really good as a teacher, or maybe you didn't play in the NFL, maybe you played at a certain level, but you end up being a really good teacher to other people. That can happen too. So you shouldn't just blow a guy off because he didn't play. But like I said, this is a friction that's been going on in sports a lot. I think it's probably at an all-time high now, and now you've got the social media component to it.
One texter says, okay, this guy's got his 10 minutes of fame. Can we move on from Route God? Yes. 615-737-1025. We will get back into the Titans. Nothing that has anything to do with Route God. We'll discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Speaking of 1025, Maple Street Biscuit Company and 1025 have teamed up and are giving you a chance to win a pair of tickets in the all-inclusive 501 Club at Bridgestone Arena to the Music City Rodeo, followed by Charlie Crockett this Friday night. Text the keyword rodeo, RODEO, to 615-737-1025 now to enter to win. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game, Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Nute here with you. Tomorrow, we will be out at Hermitage Golf Course as part of the 615 Open. A big day for Cromwell Media. Looking forward to getting out on the golf course. Now, I won't be golfing, but I'll be out on the course. I will be there physically. You will not see me swinging a golf club, but I will be there. And I've just got confirmation. Joining us on the show tomorrow, the one and only Joe Rexrode. Joe Rexrode
Boom.
will join the show tomorrow. We'll hear him complain about the 2014 college football playoff. We'll talk to him, of course, about everything that's happening in college football. But Joe Rexrode himself will join the program tomorrow at 4.
What do you talk about, the bad BO?
If you ask him about it.
Okay.
Make sure you're wearing deodorant, Rexrode, so you don't look hypocritical.
Take
Just
care of your
saying.
own house, right?
It's going to be a hot day tomorrow. Lather up that deodorant, my friend. But that's tomorrow. Elliotte Friedman will join us tomorrow as well. So, as I went through my rendition yesterday of all of the things I missed to the tune of "We Didn't Start the Fire," I mentioned Cameron Ward has lost some weight, throwing darts to Carnell Tate. What else do I have to say? Well, Cam Ward has dropped, I believe he said 10 pounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has dropped 10 pounds since the end of last season. And Jeremy Fowler put this out there last week. He said, quote, Cam Ward's lighter frame and dietary changes, RIP seed oils, could help his running ability in a Brian Daboll offense that utilizes dual threats. Under Daboll, Josh Allen in 2021, 7.2 rushing attempts per game. Daniel Jones in 2022, 7.5 rushing attempts per game. Jackson Dart in 2025, 7.2 rushing attempts per game. So Allen in 2021, Jones in 2022, Jackson Dart in 2025, all averaged at least 7 rushing attempts per game under Brian Daboll. Last season, Cam Ward averaged 2.8 rushing attempts per game. With a lighter frame and a coach who utilizes quarterbacks in multiple ways, Willie Donick, should we expect Cam Ward to use his legs more often this season?
We had a good conversation about this on Friday when you were out, Adam. So we are curious to get your
I'm glad to be in it.
And I think it came down to this for us when we discussed this. Derrick, you fill in where I leave the details out. But the big question I think is, do you want Cam Ward running 7+ times per game? A, is he good enough? Like I losing 10 pounds is great and everything like that, but I don't see anything in his game that's going to have me think he's going to be a really effective runner like a Ryan Tannehill was, like a Steve McNair was, and like these aforementioned guys that Daboll has had. I just don't see Cam Ward doing that. And then number 2, would you want him running that many times per game because of the durability questions that come with that?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on hit the nail right on the head with that. And what I could add to it, listen, those quarterbacks are all different frames. They all come in different frames, with Josh Allen being the biggest. And then the mentality. I think Jackson Dart, even watching him in college, he had a runner's mentality. He's sort of like Will Levis, may not be as reckless, but he's like a Will Levis. It's almost like he wants to and he thrives, when he has that ability to run and get that contact. That it seems like he thrives from that. Cam Ward is totally different. I think Cam Ward is more so in the, again, and I'm not comparing him to the guy, but he's more so in the Mahomes sort of bracket where I can run. I don't want to run. I want to buy time to hit guys down the field. I want to extend the plays. There's a difference from a guy extending a play, having ability to extend a play, and a guy that looks to run. Lamar Jackson was a guy that looked to run early in his career. Steve McNair was a guy that looked to run early in his career. But then after that, they learned how to play the game better. They learned how to read the field better. They trusted the guys that they were throwing it to a lot better. And then they became guys that want to buy time, guys that want to extend plays. Again, I can run if I need to, and there may be opportunities where I have to, situations where I have to. But Cam Ward, watching him last year, he doesn't seem, and watching him at Miami, he doesn't seem like a guy that wants to run. Not that he can't. I think dropping the 10 pounds will allow him to be a little lighter in the pocket, hips and releasing the ball. All that stuff, will be a benefit from him losing weight. But also is him eluding the pocket, not necessarily to run, but to buy time so he can hit his receivers down the field. So what Willie said was exactly right. And and he knew in Buffalo and in New York, there's a lot riding on whether your quarterback is healthy or not. And are these 7 runs design runs, or are they just runs that happen in a game? Maybe 1 or 2 are designed, but the rest, or 3 are designed, but the rest are just happenstance. Which one are we sort of trying to accomplish here?
So to your point about the sizes of all of these quarterbacks that Brian Daboll has worked with, and Teron Davenport brought this up yesterday. Josh Allen, currently listed at 6'5", 237 pounds. Daniel Jones, 6'5", 230 pounds. Jackson Dart, 6'2", 223 pounds. Cam Ward, 6'2", 219 pounds. I assume that does not reflect the weight loss. So Cam Ward, the smallest of that group. I'm looking at NFL Pro's fantasy stats because they break down all of these things in incredible detail. They have Cam Ward with 23 scramble rush attempts last season and only 5 designed rush attempts last season. I believe one of those rush attempts was the play he got injured on at the end of the season, because that was a designed run, if I am not mistaken, in the red zone against the Jaguars. So NFL Pro has Cam Ward with 23 scramble rush attempts, but only 5 designed run attempts all of last season.
Well, I mean, I would like to keep it that way. But there will be times where, it's this, RPO and the defense forces Cam to keep the ball just so they can get a shot on him. But you don't want too many of those. Your offense has to be able to, run without having all of these RPOs in them. Now, listen, they may give him the option, the run pass option may be to, just hand it off to the running back or throw it to the receiver. And that may be it. But I don't want, the less he's a part of the running game, the better to me.
So Ted Wynn, friend of the show, we've had Ted Wynn on before, of The Athletic. He wrote a story last week looking at all of the quarterbacks who are getting new play callers this coming season. And here is what he wrote about Cam Ward, part of it. Quote, "There aren't many play callers more fit to develop Ward than Brian Daboll. Ward is a playmaker who is used to spread systems. He can handle a lot of responsibility and options pre-snap. As Daboll did with Josh Allen, he will install an offense that will put a lot on the quarterback's shoulders, but also give them answers at the line of scrimmage. He'll use more shotgun spread concepts than the current offensive meta in the league, Kyle Shanahan/McVay outside zone system." Wynn continues, "Daboll became too reliant on Jackson Dart's ability to run the ball, but that won't be an issue while calling plays for Ward, who is more of a scrambler rather than an option runner. The question is, can Daboll develop a traditional running attack to help Ward?"
We hit on this detail on Friday as well. And where I'd like to see Ward get better is not necessarily running attempts. If there are scrambles where, for whatever reason, he's more able to find some yardage there, that's great. I don't think designed runs are going to be a big part of this. And we talked about Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart took some hard shots last year. And if he keeps doing that, it's a matter of time before he starts to feel the wear and tear. But where I think Cam Ward could really improve, if he can just escape. If his leanness, if his working on his body allows him to escape would-be rushers and extends plays more, whether he runs or throws off of that, I think that would be big, because I think we saw a lot of times last year where you're like, he had a chance to get away from that guy. If he steps up right there, he could find something. But the first guy got him for one reason or another. And that quick first step, if he can be better at that, to me, that is where the improvement could come.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily from them calling design runs, just his ability to get out of the pocket a lot quicker. And again, it's not getting out of the pocket to run, it's getting out of the pocket to buy some time. Now, he's going to have to learn, and I'm sure he will. There's going to be a time where you have to run. And I think last year there were several times where he should have ran. He held on to the ball and there was a no play to be had. Because everything just took too long to develop. He couldn't find no open guys. So hopefully he can learn from that, not necessarily be a runner unless he has to run in a sense. But Dabo, and I think he will be able to establish a run game. He did it with Saquon Barkley. I get it. The guys they have isn't Saquon Barkley, but still the run game works if you have a good running back. I think Pollard is a good running back, and I think Tajay Spears as well. Hopefully Singleton can come in and give them something that neither one of those guys, possess in the sense of being a true playmaker. But if they can get the offensive line situated and the offensive line playing like they did the second half of the season, if they can play that way this season to start off, then there may not be a lot of these, RPOs in the sense of the quarterback having to run the ball or him having to, the offensive line breaks down and him having to get yardage. If the offensive line improves, a lot of that you won't see.
Skylar says, God bless. 6'5", 237 pounds. Josh Allen is a unit.
Yeah.
One texter says, Cam has to take open space that is available to him early in the season so the linebackers and safeties start cheating up to free up the over the middle for the receivers. Jared from Spring Hill says that's 7 wasted plays for Ward running the ball. He's not good enough to risk it, nor do I want him to do it because it's not a skill set of his.
I agree. I've never seen him as a runner with the ball, but that's different than escapability, pocket presence, finding the space to extend the play. That is the key.
He's not a runner. He's not. He's not the guy that you want to, take your offense and say, hey, we want to make you a part of the running game. No, he's not that guy. He's the guy that if I have to run, I will, but as long as I can buy time, that's what I would rather do.
One texter says, the stats show he likes his quarterback to run about 7 times per game. I don't think that's too much. It's enough to keep the defense thinking quarterback run.
But he's not Josh Allen and the other guys on the list, Jackson Dart,
Daniel Jones.
And Daniel Jones. Those guys are very good runners, all 3 of them.
Let's go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Mark in Nashville. Mark, good to talk to you. Go ahead.
How you doing, Adam? What's going on?
What's so funny?
Hey, I know you were listening last week, Adam. That was my brother that called in, man. It wasn't me.
Were your ears burning Friday at, say, what time did you call, Mark? About 5:10, something like that? Maybe around this time on Friday?
Hey, give me some respect, Willie. Why you keeping time on me now? Why you doing that? Hey, Willie, why you trying to gaslight the situation? Adam probably mad at me anyway.
Well, I wasn't on the show on Friday, so I'm not sure what you're talking about.
We were wondering if it got back to you.
Yeah, we was just wondering if it
we'll have to talk about this.
Mark was complaining that he doesn't get the VIP treatment that he does when it's just Derrick and I on the show.
Well, I'm sorry, Mark.
Oh,
he said you don't show him the respect.
Hey, that's right. Hey, Adam, you've always been my guy. I always used to tell you when you filled in on Robbie and Joe's show, hey, give him a job. Adam know I said that, but hey, Connor's my buddy too. I think Connor might have told me or gave me $20 to say that, Adam. I don't know what happened, man.
The check is in the mail.
But, check's in the mail. But hey, y'all talking about Cam. Cam's not a runner. But if it's like 3rd and 2 and it needs to keep the drive going alive, Cam's got to run the ball. Because, hey, they're going to play up tight on the receivers. And a lot of it depends on his line. Like D-May said, he's going to have a good running game. Maybe sometimes you can go with 2 tight end sets or whatever you need to do. but I wouldn't run Cam a lot. He's not like Josh. He's not like Daniel Jones. And like Willie was saying earlier, Jackson Dart, how many concussions has he got from doing that? He's almost at a point where he's going to get knocked out the league if he continues doing that. But Cam's not a runner or whatnot, Adam. But hey, Adam, I know you got my guy Joe Brinkstrow coming on tomorrow.
Yes.
Adam, I want you to talk to Joe, because see, I want to debate Joe so bad. I know I can beat Joe. You're just like I used to call Steelman out, would never want to debate with me or whatnot. But yes, I want Joe. I know I could beat Joe, but I want to debate with him about Joe Montana. If you hear me in the morning, you know I defend Joe Montana. Yeah, I don't play that. But hey, Adam, before I go, Adam, that was my brother. I'm with Sugar Free, and he got Sweet and Low. Yeah, he got Sweet and Low. So we good, man. Yeah, we good. Hey, Adam, you remember that commercial, Double Mint Gum? Well,
yes.
We double the pledge over here.
All right.
We double the pledge over here. We see y'all later, man.
We appreciate you, Mark. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my goodness. Sweet and Low.
Sugar Free and Sweet and Low. Her cousin, Splenda.
Yeah, there we go. We keep going.
And her daughter, Stevia.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh my, 615.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Always good for a laugh. 615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on if Brian Daboll, based on his history with other quarterbacks, could use Cam Ward in the running game more often, and should he? 615-737-1025. Speaking of Jackson Dart, he's been in the news lately, and I do want to discuss this. I do want to ask Derrick a question that I feel only a professional athlete can really answer. And we'll discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-May, Svingen, and Donick, 1025 the game. A little Prince for your drive home. In the previous segment, what's so funny?
I was thinking of a movie and that has the same sort of beat. And it was an Eddie Murphy movie. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was like Chubby Rain instead of Purple Rain. Have y'all ever? What was the name of the movie? He had a twin brother. Well, wasn't a twin brother. One guy, Eddie Murphy, was trying to pretend as if he was a movie star. He was a movie
Goldfinger?
Star. Yeah, Goldfinger. Was it Goldfinger?
Goldfinger, right? No.
I thought it was Nutty Professor.
No, it wasn't Nutty Professor.
No,
It's
not Goldfinger.
It's not Goldfinger.
No, that's a James Bond movie.
Yeah.
Norbit.
Norbit.
No, that's a different movie as well.
Yes, you're right.
Oh man, it was with Steve Martin.
Yes, you're right. Exactly.
Bowfinger.
Bowfinger.
Bowfinger. I'm confusing Goldfinger.
And it was Chubby Rain.
Yes.
So that's why I started laughing.
Norbit.
Norbit was good.
What an awful movie that was.
That was a great movie.
It was awful.
Man.
Absolutely awful. Can't believe we're talking about Norbit. All right, let's move on to something much more controversial, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So there was some major drama in the NFL. I think this happened over the weekend with the New York Giants. We mentioned Jackson Dart in the previous segment. Jackson Dart introduced President Donald Trump at a rally in New York. And then his teammate, Abdul Carter, questioned that openly on social media. And allegedly, Carter and Dart squashed the beef. But this is going to continue to be a thing. As Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk noted, this drama will take center stage when Giants OTAs resume. Dart's going to be asked about it. Carter's going to be asked about it. Harbaugh is going to be asked about it. And look, in this world we're living in right now, this intense political polarization we have that's become the norm, it's hard to have conversations like this because sides have already been taken. To some, Jackson Dart is an American hero. To others, he's a pariah because he introduced the president at a rally. But here's the question I have for Derrick.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who is in NFL locker rooms for a long time now, politics was much different when you were playing than it is now in terms of that polarization. But I was reading an interesting column from Candace Buckner of The Athletic, and I want to quote from her because I think she did a really good job. She said, quote, "An NFL locker room is like a casserole cooked up by 53 different men." She continues, "Every Sunday, cultural differences cease. Their identities as teammates take precedence over their individualities as complex human beings for the greater good of the team. It is why the NFL locker room has been idealized as one of the few institutions in America that achieves we over me."
Mm-hmm.
So here's my question, Derrick. How much do athletes care about each other's politics? Because there's this thought that there's going to be some sort of crack in the Giants locker room among those who support the president and among those who don't. And this snippet on social media has been used as an example, like, the Giants are going to be a mess this season. The young pass rusher is calling out the young rookie or young second-year quarterback. But in your experience, how much do athletes truly care about each other's politics in the locker room?
I think it differs. I guess from generation to generation. I can't holistically speak on what locker rooms are like now, because the climate is different now. I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Willie, I've followed politics more the last decade or so, but I can remember politics back to the Reagan days, Bush, the first Bush, because my parents and listening to them. But I think the most controversial thing in our time when I was playing was the whole Katrina thing. That became sort of a divide with people. And so much so that you have Kanye West getting on air and saying what he said. To me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Willie, that may have been, and I know things happen, but I'm talking about a president being divisive, seen as divisive. That was probably one of the biggest things that sort of happened. But after that, there were a lot of things going on in the country, but it wasn't in a sense of people feeling that one person or a group of people are dividing everybody. That's why I said this climate is different. It's different from the climate that I played professional sports in. It's different from the climate that Willie played, sports in. It's become, politics has found its way in everything that you do. And when people say it hasn't, they're lying.
That's what I would be curious about. How different is it, especially with the social media component of it, where you might have.
We didn't have social media and all that stuff.
Right. You might have multiple people weighing in on social media, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're willing to have a philosophical discussion in a locker room. Because I'll ask you the question. I can say in my time as a college player for 2 different sports and then a minor league baseball player, I don't remember having any kind of discussion in the locker room. Maybe it came up a day or two, but on all the days, it rarely, if ever, came at like a real heated discussion.
There was really
even
no
a
reason.
Good constructive thing. It was about, usually nonsense. A movie that you saw, we could debate over a movie or
sports team.
Yeah,
or something
you could
like
have
that.
plenty of things that, especially in a baseball
Or
dugout.
my neighborhood versus or my city versus your city.
100%. And trash talk was fun, but it just it usually never went to religion or politics.
Exactly, because I think there was
and it's not like there was a policy saying, hey,
No.
guys, you don't talk about that in the dugout. Nobody said anything. It just didn't come up.
No, it did. Never.
But
And
today, maybe it comes up more. I don't know.
I do believe that, it comes up more than what people think. Examples, you see guys, going out and supporting certain, politicians, whoever it may be, from the president on down to, congressman or mayor or whatnot. So you're always going to find people, I think now, because of the advent of social media, where you don't necessarily have to be somewhere, or you can like a post from a politician. And a lot of times people perceive that as you agreeing with that person, or you like what that person said, or you're promoting that person. So it's done in different ways. But in a locker room, you have to understand that because of what we're trying to achieve in a locker room, you can have your politics, you can have your religion. But I think a lot of times what happens is, if your religion or your politics become divisive, that's when the problem occurs.
Yeah.
Because if it's not, it's like people don't, if you Democrat, Republican, Christian, atheist, Buddhist, Jew, it doesn't matter. We're here for one common goal. We're all trying to get to know one another. But when one of those things become divisive, especially now in this, in the world of, again, social media, when those things become divisive in the world, they tend to seep into the locker room. Maybe not in a way where it's going to divide us all, but people talk about it. Why? This is the reason why. Because everybody ain't making the money we're making. And that's what people got to understand. Everybody, I have brothers, parents, cousins, friends that don't live like me. So when I'm thinking about things, I think about it, what would they be thinking? Because they're not in the same tax bracket as me, or they don't benefit from some of the things like I do. So it has become divisive now because we understand why.
I can totally see a situation where Dart did what he did, Abdul Carter did what he did, and it's all in the social media realm. I can see it just being business as usual in the locker room, where it just doesn't come up. Like, if it leads to constructive conversation between the two of them, that's not a bad thing at all. It doesn't have to be divisive, but what happens, as we know, there are consequences. When you're the Giants quarterback and when you're the Giants, whatever second or third overall pick that Carter was, they're going to get asked about it. It's the New York media. Like we know how some of these newspapers work. They want to sell headlines. They want clicks. So they're going to try to get them to continue to comment. That's where there are consequences for stepping out and doing that. You have every right to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to get mad at one side or whatever for, they don't speak up. They don't ever say take a stand. Well, you can't get mad if somebody does want to go out there and put himself out there. But there are consequences for it. But I'm curious about the locker room part of it. Do they end up, hey man, I got my beliefs. You want to talk about it? That would be good. But I don't know if that's going to happen.
It may.
But the media will ask on the record,
Mm-hmm.
hey, well, why did you do that? Have you had any distraction in the locker room because of that? Are you guys cool? All of that stuff.
Here's the thing again, is that that's like when you're looking at your locker room, and because we may not talk about it, but we know.
Right.
We know what is
it's
what,
who's
it.
Yeah.
We know.
Because you saw the post.
Exactly. But when you walk into your locker room and your locker room looks a certain way, but you kind of go outside of that and may do something that is contrary to what the locker room believes, and you're supposed to be the leader, you're gonna walk back in there. You got to explain yourself. And I'm because I'm trying to be careful, but I don't want to be careful because it is what it is. But when you walk into a locker room and your locker room is, let's just say, a small number, your locker room is 50% black or 50% minority, and you walk in and you go support something, whatever it is, that isn't about unity or anything, and you walk into my locker room and you expect us to now look at you like a leader? No, that's not gonna fly. It's not. That's why quarterbacks, all of them are always, they try to be as neutral as possible because they are the leader of that locker room. And if you have a locker room filled with African Americans, and then in their mind, you do something that is contrary to that. Again, this is not about Republicans or Democrats, because we've had plenty of Republicans in office and plenty of Democrats. Again, I can go back to the Bush days. I'm talking about the last Bush, the son. It wasn't divisive in the locker room, but there was one moment where, especially folks that were in Louisiana, people that were from Louisiana,
Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah, they were upset. So how do a guy look going outside of the locker room and supporting when half of your locker room is either black or some of them are from Louisiana?
615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show by discussing this because we did get a text that I do want to address, because this has been a common defense of Jackson Dart. And I preface all of this by saying that I'm not going to criticize Jackson Dart, but I do want to address this coming up next as we wrap up the show. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
False start.
Hey, if you live in the Middle Tennessee area for any time, then you've seen how wild this weather can be, from winter storms, tornadoes to flooding. We've seen it all. Like many of you, the winter storm earlier this year caught me unprepared. I lost power for 7 days. That was 7 days in a hotel, worrying about whether my pipes were going to burst. 7 days, just pain. And that was just, I hated it. But then I realized being prepared isn't an option. I'll be ready the next time a weather emergency hits. So I started looking for whole home generators and found Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. They've been in business for over 30 years, specializing in generators for more than half of those, which is all great. But the reason I reached out to them and chose them was because of the reviews and the confidence other homeowners shared about their experience with Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. When Tri-State came to my home, they did a free on-site assessment and made sure the generator fit my home for me and my family's needs. The thing I appreciated the most is they didn't try to oversell me. Just straight answers, turnkey, and they handle everything. You know I like that. From installation to long-term services. If anything ever goes wrong, I'm picking up the phone and I'm calling them. I'm not calling anyone else. I'm picking up the phone and calling TriStar Water, Power, and Air, because they've got me covered, and I know they will have you covered, because that's the type of relationship I want, and I know that's the type of relationship you want. So, look, the weather isn't slowing down any. It's been raining. It's going to continue to rain, I believe, until this Wednesday. This Sunday. So be ready. Call Tri-State Water, Power, and Air today to protect your home from you. Protect your home for your family. Find TriStateWhyWait.com. That's TriStateWhyWait.com.
D Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game.
I like the music coming back. I like the theme too.
Colors.
It's the colors.
Yes, I like it. See?
Black and white to end the program. We will be at Hermitage Golf Course tomorrow as part of the 615 Open. Joe Rexroad will join the program. Elliotte Friedman will join the program. We'll have a fun time out on the golf course tomorrow at Hermitage Golf Course as part of the 615 Open. I do want to address a text as we discuss this Jackson Dart Abdul Carter drama. I've seen this a lot, and I disagree with this texter, respectfully. The texter says, Dart didn't make a political statement. He introduced the president. I understand the idea that it is an incredible honor to introduce the president of the United States. But the political norms of yesteryear no longer apply. So, like it or not, Jackson Dart introducing the president is a tacit endorsement of the president. Thank you. I don't believe in shut up and dribble. If an athlete wants to speak their mind about their beliefs, I want them to do it, even if I disagree with their position. But rightly or wrongly, Jackson Dart is now associated with President Trump in the minds of many, just by being on the stage with him. At one point in time, that wouldn't have mattered. But we all know the world we live in now. It matters a hell of a lot now. So I disagree with the notion that by just simply introducing the president, it's not any sort of endorsement of the president. And I'll leave it at that.
I'm sure, and again, I know people will say you were not asked to be in a position that Dart was in, and you're absolutely right, 100%. But I know I can say no to a situation that I know can become something I don't want it to become. He's a grown man, okay? And he could have said, hey, listen, I'm sorry, but I got something to do. I'm busy, whatever. Because I'm sure the phone call didn't come from the president. It came from someone else. Hey, we're going to be here. Can you do this? And he said, yeah. And when the minute you said, yeah, that was an endorsement, whether you like it or not. And again, endorse who you want to endorse. You have that right to do that. I can't tell you necessarily who not to vote for or who to vote for. That is your deal. That's your vote. Do it. So this is not, but when you are a leader of a team, we try in a locker room, we try our best to make it as welcoming and everything as you possibly can. If everybody modeled their lives or their business after a locker room and how it operate, you will have more successful people, more successful businesses, more successful communities, because we all come from different walks of life. We all believe something different, but we all come together for a common goal, and we respect one another, and things don't become contentious. When I don't like what you say, we talk about it and we get through it. So if everyone thought that way, we'd be a much better country, but that's not the climate we're in at the moment. When he does go out and say it, it does, for if you love it or don't, when he does, it could have been Barack Obama, it could have been Biden, it could have been Bush, it could have been, when the minute you step out and do something for that individual, and we've seen it on both sides, they will label you as a supporter, and some will criticize you for it. But as a leader of a locker room, you got to understand that and know maybe this is not the best thing for me to do and for us as a locker room.
David on our text line says, Adam, you could not be more wrong. That is exactly what is wrong with this country. Thoughts like that. We need to get back to where we honor the office regardless of the man. Jackson Dart introduced the president, the office. It was not an endorsement. It had nothing to do with endorsement. You guys have lost your mind.
That is the weirdest thing that I've ever heard.
I'm sure you've heard weirder things.
No. That is one of those weird things that you hear and say, huh? So what you're telling me is this. If I have someone that in leadership that is abusing me, I got to sit there and just say, okay, I'm just going to endorse him every time. And I'm just talking about anything. It could be a parent. If my parent is beating me, I don't have to endorse them. I don't. So what you're saying is no matter what, because this person has this title, I got to succumb to him. No, you don't. I don't care who it is. If you don't think what they're doing is right. And again, in this situation, you're talking about Jackson Dart and him, opening up or coming out to introduce the president. But either way, if you think that whatever's going on, I don't have to support it. I only support something that I believe in. That's all. That's what people do. I'm not supporting anything I don't believe in. Just like Tri-State. I believe in Tri-State. If I didn't, I wouldn't support it.
Let's run through some calls. We've got to be quick. Let's start with Chet. Chet, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Well, I first of all want to prefix. I feel like I'm unique in this situation because I'm completely neutral. I'm politically. I don't care for either party, and people say that, but everybody goes back to what they've been fed since they were really young. But as life has gone on, I look at politicians and I don't look up to really any of them. So I'm completely neutral on this situation. So I look at all this stuff completely neutral and starting everything right in the middle. And when you have to look at this current president, this is a divisive guy. Okay, you have to start with that. You can't say he's just the president, so we need to bow down to him, or he's just the president, so he's just introducing. You're talking about a very divisive person. I think Donald Trump himself would say, I'm divisive. Every tweet, everything that comes out of his mouth, his brand is divisive. That's not new to anybody. And so, look at Mendoza when he went to the Raiders. He was kind of in this similar situation about going to the White House. He was smart, wasn't he? He didn't make it about politics. He stayed out of it. He just simply, are you going to go to the White House? He's, well, I have a commitment to be at training camp or to be at OTAs and be at mini camp, and I'm going to be there to commit to my teammates. He stayed away from the politics. And God, look how smart he looks right now by just staying out of the politics. And now when you look at Jackson Dart, actually, D. Mace, if you look at the Giants roster, that's about 80% African-American. And so it's not 50-50. It's about 80%. And so if you want to lead that team, you've got to make decisions on how I want to lead that team and lead that team in the locker room. I just think it's like an artist, right? Like a music artist talking politics. If you want to dive into that world, you got to know you're all in. You're going to be painted. If you want to be an artist and you want to talk politics, that's your right. But you're going to be forever painted in whatever corner you go there, and that's kind of how I see it.
Thank you, Chet. Let's quickly go to Bear on our phone line. Bear, we've got about 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah, guys, real quick, I agree with the last caller and what you guys have been saying. Just that Jackson Dart, a lot of people that support Trump, it's not even really about politics, it's just about the guy. You know what I mean? Like Derrick said, you had different presidents, people had different politics and everything back in the day, but it's the guys, the things he said, like just, I try to tell my friends that support him, like, you don't see it from my perspective, but what if Louis Farrakhan were the president and I was up supporting him? Think of all the mean-spirited, divisive, hateful things he said about your race and all that. How would you feel me being your friend supporting a guy that feels that way about you? And that's all I got to say, guys.
Thank you, Bear.
Thank you, Bear.
Good conversation. Mm-hmm. We do have to end it here. Perhaps we'll pick it up more tomorrow. We will be live at Hermitage Golf Course as part of the 615 Open. Looking forward to that. Mm-hmm. Getting out on the golf course again. I will be out there. I will not be swinging a club.
Out there with no clubs.
I'm not swinging any golf clubs. Nobody wants to.
Willie, we need to get him off on get him out on a golf course.
No. Hard pass. But Joe Rexroad.
What if we give you a brewski or something?
I can't drink on the air.
Or
can I?
I'm saying just taking you off on a golf course.
Wait a minute.
After.
Who knows? Nobody knows. Nobody knows what's in this big-ass water bottle I have. Joe Rexroad will... It's water. Joe Rexroad will join the program tomorrow at 4. Elliotte Friedman of SportsNet will join the program tomorrow at 5. Until then, we'll talk to you tomorrow at 3.
Be love. Love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. This team loves you. You hear that music, don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. We will talk to you tomorrow live from Hermitage for the tournament, golf tournament. So as I always say, tomorrow we're going to be talking and
you're going to be listening.
Peace.